Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to some part of the world and evening in another part of the world. That's the beauty about GAIS. Alhamdulillah, we meet across the world at an opportune time. This is the Reading Circle with your host Abdullah Suji. Inshallah, we'll begin with a recitation of the Holy Quran. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. We thank and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the gift of Iman and for the fact that we are Muslim and we have the Holy Quran as the book of guidance, the Sunnah of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam as an explanation and a tafsir of the Holy Quran. In the reading circle, we interview in the main author of the book that we choose. Together with that, the listeners have a chance to interact with the author on the chat, as you will see on the app that's in front of you. You can pose your questions in the chat and we will take it up. In the first 20 odd minutes, we talk to the author directly. We engage with questions that have been prepared, and you as the audience, you are most welcome to type in your question and we'll take those questions as well. Today, my esteemed guest is Dr. Yaqub Mirza, and he's got a wonderful profile of achievements, supporting institutions, being on the head of many institutions, and we're going to leave it to him to introduce himself to us because I want to pick up the conversation from there. So let's begin by introducing our guest and firstly welcoming him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brother Yaqub Mirza, Jazakallah khair for coming onto GIIS Reading Circle. And we hope that this is going to be a very interactive, informative, and prosperous interview. Jazakallah khair. Dr. Mirza, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Abdullah. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and discussing the book which I wrote some years ago. As far as my background is concerned, I was born in Pakistan, got my master's degree from University of Karachi, and then I moved to the United States and got my PhD in physics in 1974. Since then, I've been doing my work in physics, published lots of papers, and then finally I decided to move into helping charitable organizations, including becoming a businessman and helping to develop endowments, because as I believe, endowments is the key to the permanency and to continuation of our organizations. So that's what I've done, that's what I'm doing now. And in order to give back to the community, I have accepted several board membership, committee memberships in different universities, mainstream universities. And currently I serve on the board of Shenandoah University, which is about 147-year-old. And also I chair the Investment Endowment Committee. And I'm also the member of the Finance Committee. So in the Investment Endowment Committee, we have started investing based on faith-based as well as ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. So that's an indirect way of introducing our values and our ethics to the work which we do. Shenandoah University is affiliated with the Methodist Church, but they welcome any religion, any cultures, any people from all over the world, and faith-based investing is very welcome by the university as well as by the trustees. So that's really my brief background. As to the book, when I was growing up with my father, we used to read hadith books, Mishkat al-Saba, together. And two things he emphasized over and over. One thing is that we should never borrow money, and if we borrow, we must return it. And the second thing is that we should not do any harm to any person. And then he emphasized that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his mercy will forgive everything. But if we have borrowed money from someone and did not return it, as well as we did harm to somebody, that will be forgiven only by the aggrieved party. So that left a very strong mark on me, and that
Alhamdulillah.
guided my life
Mhm.
throughout. Because these are things which you don't want to take a chance. And as we know, Rosa Kiyama, everybody will need good deeds, and if that person does not forgive me, they will probably take my good deeds, and that's what is the most precious thing on that day which you have. So that's really led me my wife,
Jazakallah khair. I want,
myself,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, my life
yep.
to find ways and means how can we live a life,
Mhm.
uh, particularly in the United States, without borrowing and without depending on someone else. And so that has given me, so to speak, the practical aspects of how did I manage, and that's really the book is all about.
Alhamdulillah, that has been a very good introduction, and there's so many uh, lessons of faith there. The book that we're discussing here this afternoon in South Africa, and like I said, various times in other parts of the world, is called Five Pillars of Prosperity: Essentials of Faith-Based Wealth Building by Yaqub Mirza, doctor. And you've heard the background of our esteemed author here. So, Alhamdulillah, so we already in the book, so to speak. I've read your book, and I find it very interesting. What I like about the book in the first part of it is the way it reads. It's very conversational, and it's not highly strung. It's not very scholarly. It is what we would say everyone's piece of bread. So let's begin with the anecdote, which I loved in the book. It's further. It's not in the beginning of the book, but it's turned out. It's called turning off the lights, and that is a precursor to understanding a book. Tell us about that, because Alhamdulillah, I see in the chat already it says, I love the advice from your father. So that will build up again into what advice can do. So let's begin with the anecdote, turning off the lights. I found that very good, Dr. Mirza.
Yeah, thank you so much. There are many aspects to this question. First, if I may say, I have made the habit of saving on everything, whether it is tissue papers, whether it is buying bulk, in everything. That's my way of living. It's very hard for me to spend money when I feel that I don't need anything. As far as turning off the lights is concerned, I used to go around the house and turn off all the unused lights. And it so happened that Queen Elizabeth used to do the same thing, although she didn't need to economize as a queen, but it is a habit. So I asked my children to write something about growing up in a household, which is Mirza household, and they were trained to economize. So Yunus, my son, on page 37, he writes about turning off the lights, and I think I would request to all of you to read that page. It's very nice how he put it, how he humorized it. So he got married very early. He was 21 or 22, and we encouraged him to, find a suitable match and, be married. So he goes around and turning off the lights. So he turns off lights where his wife was studying, and she says, Yunus, what are you doing? I'm still using this light. And he said, well, go and ask my dad. So really, it is a habit you can form, and it is on everything. I mean, it's not just the lights, but lights are more expensive. Electricity is expensive, and you can economize. I give examples in my book how to save money on everything. Some of my students, when I teach this course, they have given me hints. Like some students who are living in the dorm, they will say they unplug all the electric appliances when they leave for summer because there's no need to use electricity when they are not there. So one person told me that you unplug the charger from the wall when you're not charging a phone because some electricity is been used. So you can come up with many other ideas which will help you to save money. You watch the pennies, and as they say,
Mhm.
the rands or
Yes.
the pounds or the dollars will take care of itself.
No, absolutely. To the readers, now this anecdote might come across that the book is very, pedantic on saving, but no, it's actually not. It's a book that makes you understand how you can master your personal finances and eventually take that mentality into your institution, and you have that kind of institution independence that you grow because you realize that saving is part of an Islamic duty. As we have learned, a preservation of wealth is an Islamic duty, and we take that as a prophetic teaching. Now, Doctor, your book has a focus that has roots based on personal experiences with life in the main. And that is what I enjoyed about the book, is that it is not a pie in the sky. It is something within your experience. Your experience, many people can identify with it. So take us through the reasons why you wrote this book, because no one would write a book on finances, and personal wealth. We've seen the likes in the media, we've seen the likes on other bookshelves on personal wealth, and I don't want to go through the list of authors there. But what were the reasons that you chose as the fundamental ones to write this book? Jazakallah.
Yeah, thank you. Very good question. I used to teach, not five pillar prosperity, but mostly like wills and estates and financial planning in an Islamic way. How can we plan for our future of our children, their marriages, their education, and then of course distribution of wealth upon death and before death. I very strongly believe giving while living. You can lot more ajr that way. So when I was teaching, one of the students, which I mentioned in the book, the beginning of the book, suggested to me that why don't you write a book? So I sat up, reluctantly. I'm not an author. I'm not a writer. So I reluctantly, start writing and start putting things together. Once I completed it, I was not sure whether this is worth publishing. Usual, hesitation or doubts on your own work. So I choose to give it to three people. One is John Esposito. He's professor of Islam in Georgetown University, and the other person is a Christian fundamentalist. He very conservative. He runs a financial seminary, Gary Moore. And the third one, I gave it to a politician, Governor John Sununu, who was chief of staff of President Bush, the senior. And all three, they said this is wonderful, and you must, work towards finalizing it and writing and publishing it. So that gave me the encouragement, and sure enough, they were right. I received a lot of compliments, and there are a lot of endorsements written in Amazon and so on and so forth. So that's the way I started. I think after I wrote it and listening to people, I feel it is good that I share my experiences with people. It is not a book like my memoir or praising myself or telling how great I am, because that's not the purpose. But it is giving a practical guide how to save, how to invest, how to multiply, how to spend, and how to give.
Alhamdulillah, that is interesting. And again, to the listeners, you see, this book is such that when you read it, you begin to immerse yourself as a protagonist in the book and also as an antagonist. You become the antagonist when you realize just how you have become a spendthrift, and you become the protagonist when you say, "Hey, but I've been doing this." I really like that immersive sense that the book gives you. Now, I'm going back and forward, with the book, because I want the listeners to get the feel of it. Now, it was very interesting for me that the forward of the book begins with a statement on prosperity, and you say prosperity has long been cherished as a goal, and you talk about goals later on in the book, and you say Muhammad Najatullah Siddiqui understood this theme as a cornerstone to your book. Discuss for us now why prosperity is the lens we should look through in approaching this book. You focus on prosperity. Now, that has become my lens, it has become my binoculars and also my telescope, so to speak. And I said, wow, I need to now look at it through that lens. Tell us more,
Right.
Dr. Yaqub.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So everyone wants to be prosper. We struggle. We go to work. We save. We do so many things with the hope that we are prosper and we are able to provide to our family. We have children who are well educated, and so on and so forth. So that is the way Dr. Najat al-Siddiqui, looked at it, and he was very encouraging. As you know, Dr. Najat al-Siddiqui is from India, and he was teaching in King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah, and he received the Faisal Award. He's a good friend. He's the first Islamic economist I know, and he visited his son in California, so I used to go and spend some time with him. So he liked the book very much, and he told me, Yaqub, just keep writing because a lot of people have good experiences, but they don't write and don't share, hence nobody knows about them. So prosperity is something. It is not, it is not the main goal of life that I want to be rich or I want to be prosper. But there is nothing wrong or un-Islamic about being prosper. And if we have more money, we will definitely help other people. We'll pay more sadaqah, we'll pay more zakah, and so on and so forth. And we can help our institutions. So that's the way I understood what Najat al-Siddiqui meant to say.
For the audience again, you got to understand when we talk about certain parts of the book that it relates to what you're familiar with, probably ignoring at times. So the five elements to understand money are earn, save, invest, spend, and give. So elaborate on this because these are the five pillars, and your book is divided into these chapters of earn, save, invest, spend, and give. So let's begin, Dr. Yaqub. You can take any one of the five and elaborate so as to paint the picture for the audience that to understand prosperity, it is based on these five pillars: earning, saving, investing, spending, and giving. And before you continue, I want to pick up on what you said earlier. Giving within your lifetime has much more value than when you pass on because you are giving while you're alive, and that's a great sunnah. Bismillah, over to you,
Right.
Dr. Yaqub.
I'm sorry. Okay. So this is a good
You can
question.
begin. And, yeah.
Yeah. Let me share with you. When I wrote the book, I wrote only four pillars, and I kept thinking and kept asking myself, can I think of another one so it will rhyme with five pillars of Islam and five pillars of other things. But I couldn't think of any. Subhanallah, we were at Umrah in 2010, I believe, and I was walking from the Haram to my hotel after Asr prayer, and it just dawned on me that very first pillar and the fifth pillar should be earnings, because if you don't earn, you cannot save, you cannot invest, you cannot spend, you cannot give. So I started writing about earnings, and sure enough, as you can see, there are many examples or quotations I have given that how crucial it is to earn. Now, surprisingly, Brother
Yeah,
Abdullah, as you know, uh,
yeah, I want to interject there by
yeah,
asking our brother to put back that table which he put on now, just to show the idea of the earning and the spending. So we've got table 4.1 of page 667 of your book, which relates to the five pillars, just as a precursor to our discussion, or even as a reference point. This table can also be used. Bismillah.
sure. Thank you so much. So, as I was going to say, that most of our Islamic centers or schools or even churches, we don't really teach much about money or the finances. Somehow, there is a feeling that talking about money is not good, and it is money is dirty. For example, I don't know how we get that impression. Maybe when we were little, we were crawling around and we find a coin and we put it in our mouth, and Mama speaks, says, "So don't do that, don't do that," and we grow up with the impression that money is dirty, and we don't want to do anything with it. Although she's worried
Mhm.
about us swallowing that coin, and it is so somehow the impression is there. So unfortunately, none of our schools or Islamic centers or Jummah khutbahs, to my knowledge, and these are my opinions, they often talk about money. So this topic is just kind of left untouched.
Mhm.
So although this is very crucial part of our life is to earn and to provide for the family, and undertake many community projects, including schools and massages and
Mhm.
free clinics and orphanage and so on and so forth. So that's the way it happened. Now they are in a systematic order, because once you earn, then you can save. You can plan to save, and then you have to invest. Once you have a saving, you can invest. And then I talk about spending. Spending. I don't have to really teach anyone how to spend money, but the way I'm approaching spending is that we plan to spend. So let's say that we want to
Mhm.
buy a car. We should plan to buy a car, not just go out and buy on credit and then deal with the interest and make installment payments. So we make a plan that I
Sure.
want to buy, let's say, a Toyota Corolla in 4 years. So today value is $20,000, and I have to save $20,000 over time. By the time I would like to buy maybe $25,000. So there are tables given, and one of the table which is on the screen talks about how do you plan to save and how much you need to save to achieve your goal after 4 years that you want to buy a car. Now,
Yes. So
most
what
of
we
the
have,
people will say,
what we have.
yeah, yes, please.
Sorry, we have on the, yeah, we have on the table now how you should invest, to save for your child's education. I found this table very
Right.
interesting. Perhaps you can elaborate on this one, to give examples of the issue of investing and spending. Yeah, how much must be invested as a lump sum, so on and so forth. And we've got another table there. It shows about the income and expenditure of how we must plan. So let's discuss the first one, which is the expected cost of college education, right? Abid,
Right.
yeah, that's the one. Table 4.1, yeah.
Yeah. So, there are different tables. The very first table you will see, which Brother Abdullah just talked about, is
Mm.
plan to save. So a lot of people who come to me, they say, well, we don't spend much money here and there, but we don't have anything left after at the month end. So I just tell them, okay, please go ahead and plan, to where you spend the money. So they make a budget, which is a budget to save. And then when they write down everything, they realize, oh, I'm eating too many food outside, or maybe I'm watching too many movies, or I'm using too much cell phone. And so they plan to save. So that is one of the table which is given very early part of the book. And the second table, which Abdullah mentioned about planning to save, it's very simple. It's on page 68 and following pages. I use the inflation factor, which is the 3%, although inflation right now is higher than 3%, and in South Africa it's even more. But you can adjust that. And the other factor is I use the factor of 8% rate of return on investments.
Mhm.
So you use these two factors and say that the first one is the example of buying a car. You can say, okay, it's $20,000. I want to buy it in 5 years. The cost in 5 years will be like $23,760. So yearly investment I need to make is $4,752, or monthly at 396. And if I invest it in a
Mm.
mutual fund, I know you have Islamic mutual fund in Cape Town, and look at the income mutual fund or growth income fund, and keep on investing money in that on a monthly or on a yearly basis. And inshallah, you will have saved $23,000. You can write a check and go and buy the car. Now, many people will say, well, what shall I do in between? In between, you do what I did. You buy a very used car, which is reasonable, and just save the money for the new car. I cannot tell you
Yes,
the joy you
absolutely.
will have. Yeah, joy you will have buying a new car which is free of any debt, and you own it, and it's your car. So really it is
Absolutely. So,
yeah. So it's a
mhm.
good way to save and to buy your whatever you need. Yes, please, Abdullah.
So to the listeners, you'll see a table in front of you. It's a typical scenario of the first of the month and 15th of the month. Below that, a typical scenario with debt reorganized. And this is what the beauty, this is where the beauty of the book actually lies in. As you see, and I'm reading at the bottom, making just few adjustments to the payment due date on some of the debt item provides more remaining net cash from your income across the entire month. Now, what Dr. Mirza does in a very clever way is that if you internalize these habits, and if you're running an institution, which is an NGO or an NPO or whatever endowment, you can teach the people how to save. It's quite interesting. So, thank you for those two tables, brother, for sharing it. I want to go to the next question because it's a build up now. It is interesting that you mentioned the eight qualities of success. So, I've read so many books on leadership, and each of them talk of success, and this is it. Now you bring eight qualities of leadership into this book, and you say these qualities one would find it in leadership books, which I mentioned. Now, why did you mention those eight qualities of leadership and success here, uh, when finance, when a person looks at a book of finance, is asking now, come on, eight qualities. You can list those eight qualities, or you can just talk of one, but begin by telling us why those qualities of leadership into the issue of finance. Thank you, Dr. Yaqub.
Yeah, you're most welcome. The question is very good one. There is really no specific reason. Since I'm talking about how I lived my life, I found that
Mhm.
some of these, like being a gratitude is a very, very good. I always have attitude of gratitude. Whatever comes your way, we don't start cursing, or we don't start banging our, hand on the table or anything like that. We always say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. There must be some khair in it, whatever it comes. So attitude of gratitude, I find, is a great mechanism where you can, calm yourself down and say, Subhanallah, there must be some khair in it. If you have strong work ethics, um, employers love employees who have strong work ethics. They are on time. They work hard. They don't, just waste their time running
Mhm.
around here and there, and they perform and they deliver. Then focus in life is very important. A lot of us, or some of us, we run around trying to do everything. So we are master of everything, but we don't specialize in it. Focus is very, very good. Persistence, as Quran tells us, that people who are persistent in prayers and in giving charity, they are the successful. They are the successful ones. Persistence is very good. We cannot just start something and give up very easily. Passion, unless you have passion on what you're doing, you cannot accomplish. Now, I know some of our parents, we push our children to go to one field or the other. We all want them to be doctors and attorneys and accountants, or scientists. In our case, we have four children. Uh, Myself being a physicist and wife being a medical doctor, we did not push them in any field they want to be. We told them, find your passion. What are you passionate about, and pursue that specialization. Because I feel if you pursue your
Mhm.
passion, you will excel in it. And if you excel and you specialize in something, you will always have a job, because that is what you do the best. But if you are forced into going into a certain field, you are half-heartedly working on it. Really, your heart is not there, and you cannot excel
Mhm.
unless you are passionate about it. Integrity, I find, is very, very crucial. When you say something to someone, people should believe you and take it like it's a word written on a piece of paper. Unless you have that, it is very difficult to work with people. Have very high standards. You don't want to compromise. You want to have backbone. You want to stand for, what is right, what you believe is right. Of course, you don't want to be stubborn, but at the same time, if you believe in something, you should be willing to sacrifice whatever have. It may have a short-term, backlash, but on a long term, if you're convinced Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is going to bless you. And lately is generosity. Our last is generosity, and that is giving. I am a big believer of giving while living, and it is really have changed my life. We have discussed it with many scholars. So there is nothing stops you to give everything what you have to a mosque or to a school or to a charity, except the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, says, don't give so much that your children are begging on the street. So draw a balance, leave something for them, but rest is free to give. Some people argue with me, aren't we trying to bypass the inheritance law? Well, inheritance laws are there if you have inheritance to give. If you don't have anything to give, that's fine. So there is no requirement that you must have inheritance at that. So we can apply the inheritance law and Sharia, table how to distribute it. So really, I'm of the view, give enough to your children
Jazakallah.
now while you're living, and rest you should just spend it in the cause of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, leaving some for your retirement and for your old age. But as you grow older, give as much as you can. If I could share with you very quickly a story, there is a person called Captain Levy in Philadelphia. He's very rich and he's very generous. He used to give a lot of money to people. So one day, one person asked him, you give out so much and you still have so much. So what's the secret? He said, well, there's no secret. Secret is that I shovel money out, God shovels it back, but his shovel is a lot bigger than mine.
Well, what a good story. And
Yeah.
again, what I like about this book is that it gives you the opportunity to have conversations, and the listeners can see the conversation between myself and Dr. Yaqub. It is as if we're talking about everything else but the book. So this book lends itself to discussions about money, discussions about the akhirah, discussions about many things related to wealth, because we have got this tunnel vision. And finance is only about the pennies in your pocket and the money in the bank. Whereas Dr. Yaqub Mirza points the picture that wealth is huge. It's a different understanding when you look at it from the prism of prosperity and the prism of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing upon you. Now I want to get back to one part of the book, and it's the Quranic ayah, Quran, chapter 94, ayah 5 and 6, on the issue regarding economic crisis. This has surely impacted you differently, because we all associate this ayah with global crises like wars, and all of that. So why did you position this ayah in the Quran in the introduction of your book? And that's, it's very important for the people to understand that we tend to look at things only from one angle. But then you put this ayah 90, chapter 94, ayah 5 to 6. Bismillah, Dr. Yaqub.
Yeah. So thank you so much. So really, this ayah, as you can see, is not just limited to situation, global crisis, or war, although it is applicable there also. So if I can tell you a story, I have three things which are pinned at the back of my office door, and which I constantly, remind me, what it is. One of them is whatever you give, God will replace it. And other one is this verse which you just quoted, that for every difficulty there is a relief. So you constantly remind yourself, whether it is a job, whether it is a project, whether it is friendship, whether it's the loss of your relative or loved one or whatever, you ask yourself and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and remember that with every difficulty there is a relief. So when COVID started, a lot of people were all very upset and whatnot. And I kept on saying, this is a difficulty, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give us relief. And sure enough, we have vaccines. Now we have antiviral tablets you can take, and now you have new vaccines and so on and so forth. So this is it's very crucial to me. Every time I face a difficulty, I just remember that with this difficulty, relief is going to come, and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is going to help us. I also keep remembering Allah Subhanahu wa Taala tells us that He does not give a soul any task which is not capable of handling. So even when the difficulty comes, I remind myself, say, you know, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala knows my capabilities, and if I'm capable of handling it, so that's what I have. I have to deal with it. I have to get up and feel strong and attack the challenge because that's what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has told me to do. I should be able to overcome. So I think these are very, very important verses in the Quran and many others, which will just keeps you going.
Mhm. Absolutely. Now, you're also right there that money is a medium of exchange in return for value given. I'll repeat that. Money is a medium of exchange in return for value given. You mentioned three factors that determine the ability to generate money through providing value, and values are behaviors, value guide behaviors. The uniqueness or possibly exclusivity of what you're offering, that is the footprint of what you offer, that is the number of people who benefit from it and the impact your offering has on someone else. And this is what you write. So I want to slant this question now, into institutions. We run examples, madrasas, masjids, Islamic schools. Do you think that there is little financial knowledge in the general sense of the word that of people that run these institutions above? Because the only value they offer is service to Islam, which is great, but they also lack depth in their duty to the people they serve. Because if I'm paying you a salary, it is not the only thing I'm doing. I mustn't make you feel guilty that I'm paying you, and that is what you try to talk about. So, Bismillah.
Yeah, thank you. So I talked about three things in which you can, make money. One is service, which you talked about. Other one is you form a company, hire other people, they provide services, and you make money. And the last thing is you create an endowment, make enough money to invest, and you live off the investment. Of course, that will be the dream, but it takes time to reach to that level. As regard to our organizations are concerned, there are lots of issues, and maybe we need another session to talk about it. Personally, Brother Abdullah, I believe that we have intellectual deficit. I know a
Hmm.
lot of people don't agree with me, but that was like 15 years ago. I came up with this term, and people kind of didn't like it, but now people kind of
Hmm.
now kind of people talk about it. To my surprise, I was in the home of Anwar Ibrahim, Deputy Prime Minister, who was Deputy Prime Minister in Malaysia, and Brother Dr. Anas from UK, who works with Triple IT, put a slide up, and one of the factors he was going to discuss is that we have intellectual deficit. And he looked at me and he said, Yaqub, you remember 5 years ago you mentioned this in Turkey, and now I'm talking about it. Of course, I couldn't tell him because it was a gathering. Now I feel that not only we have intellectual deficit, but it is very difficult to convince our leaders that we have intellectual deficit because they are not willing to accept it. All of us, we think we are great, we are doing wonderfully well. Who are you to tell us that we should do differently? And then, along with that, I this is my opinion, and you may have different opinions. Along with that, whenever we are in a position, we just don't want to leave. We want to just hang on to that position for as long as we can. Now, the argument our older people gave, well, young people, if we give it to them, they will mess it up. Well, when
Hmm.
we started, we were also young people. 30 years ago when I started, I was young. So if I did not mess it up and I learned on the job. So let's have the young people have a chance to also, perform. I'm not saying that there should be revolution and we should just let go all the older people and hire younger people. There can be a
Mhm.
mix. You bring in young people to to learn with us, and that's what we do with our children. That's what we do with our families. We train them. I believe, Brother Abdullah, that success is not success without a successor. If if you are successful and
Yeah, yeah, you're correct.
after yeah, after I pass away, that success goes away with me in the grave. I haven't done anything. What I left behind is nothing. So we need to focus on bringing in the people who were capable and bring them along with us, travel with them, educate with them, invest money in them, send them to different programs, different seminars, including financial planning and workshops and all that. So that is my general
Absolutely.
concern. Now you asked a question about the finances. I am unaware
Mhm.
of any center or any organization, Islamic organization, who have a balanced budget. They always have a
Mhm.
deficit and they always go out and beg money. I'm kind of opposed to it. As my chapter 4 is talking about, you plan, save, and then you spend. So really, any project you start, you need to have a good feasibility study and raise money to have the project finished. Not that we start a project building and have finished and we don't have money to put up the roof and it has been destroyed with rain and all that. So really, I am very of a different mindset. And many projects I undertake, all the investments and endowments and others. And alhamdulillah, we have a large endowment which I oversee and then manage. Uh, we don't beg money and we plan to undertake an activity. And unless we have the budget and the money and the resources, we don't start a program. Okay, just imagine we start a clinic in Somalia to help refugees. And then after a year, I tell them, I'm sorry, I don't have the money. Fold up your shop. Or you run a school. You tell, okay, you are running a very good school, but then I come and say, well, I'm sorry, we don't have the money to continue the school. Chop off one class. We can't have eighth grade or ninth grade. This is not the way
Mhm.
to undertake activity. So planning to undertake a project is always now. It's unfortunate, and there are so many examples. Many of our people they would jump on and announce, "We are going to build this mosque, or we are going to build this thing, this cemetery, or we are going to build this orphanage," and they are very ambitious, and they have no clue where the money is coming from, and it
Mhm.
just happens. So really, there is a lot of issues which you can address, and financial planning is to me is very crucial. Now, with that, specialization is very crucial. You know,
Mhm.
if you are in a school, you need to specialize. Don't think of creating an Islamic bank. I mean, that's not your specialization. Don't think of creating Islamic hospital, or don't think of
Mhm.
creating a cemetery or an orphanage. You focus on a school and you aim to say this school has to excel, and you want to make this school one of the best in South Africa and inshallah hopefully in the world. And how do you do that? By upgrading the curricula, the standards. MIT and Yale and all these Harvard universities, they're not created the first day. They have gone through so many iterations and they have come up with a big name. Now they have a name. When somebody says, I'm Yale graduate, you say, oh, you must be, intelligent. So your specialization and excelling in what you do, that is really what is needed. And, you know, I say in my book, if someone is a good doctor, it doesn't mean that he's a good teacher in your school. or vice versa. You cannot
Absolutely.
have a suit.
I'll come
Yeah.
back to. I'll come to that part because it's quite interesting
Okay.
how
All
you
right.
talk of professionals and money. So let's look at that just now. But I get the feeling that you really want people to see young people. You want to see people in the main becoming entrepreneurs, so that they can give, which is the quality you talk about, the pillar to institutions they should serve as well. Please discuss with us at least two questions you have for entrepreneurs, because you talk about in the book you talk about giving in your lifetime, but you must have something to give. And then you
Sure.
talk of entrepreneurs, how we need more of that in the ummah, because the entrepreneurs would give more. Perhaps let's go
Yeah.
through one or two questions you have for entrepreneurs, and that can set the ball rolling for other thoughts. And we're having wonderful comments here. Sima Iman says, "Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Mirza. I hope you are well. I have not seen you in some years. Remember knowing you a couple decades ago." I have a couple of comments. The book is excellent for the general community and our institutions. I'm happy to see it on Kindle. Any chance you can get it on Audible books? I think you have a generation of listeners. In fact, I enjoy listening to the books. Thank you, Asima Imam, for that. Dr. Mirza,
Yeah.
back to the question on
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
Mashallah. Thank you, Sima. Yeah. So let's say the entrepreneurship. Um, being here in the United States, I'm involved with many technology companies, many businesses of different kind. And what I was saying earlier, that we should excel in what we do. I'm very happy and thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say this, that most of the businesses we are involved, they are the best in their industry, in their field in the United States. Now, they were not the best when we acquired them. They were at the bottom, but we worked on it 10 years, 5 years, 7 years, 15 years to bring them to the level that they are the best in their own industry. And that is the pride which my brothers and sisters as Muslims, we had to take up the challenge. And how you do this is not with the conventional wisdom, is through entrepreneurship. You think out of the box. You come up with ideas. You brainstorm. You bring in people who are smarter than you to tell you, look, we can do this, we can do that. And my job is really to bring in experts on all different fields and try to get the best out of them. I don't claim myself to be a best in technology or in real estate or this and that, but my job is to bring the best out of the people who know the business. And that is the key to it. Now, entrepreneurship is the only way, in my mind, you can make a lot of money because the new ideas are very welcome. Look at it, Apple, look at Microsoft, look at Steve Jobs. I mean, all these people, what they had was ideas and they worked on them. I served on a board with Michael Splinter, who was one of the Apple CEO, and learned a lot from him. Uh, it is the war of ideas. Whoever has the better ideas can win. And we cannot help our organizations just by earning 50,000, 100,000 a year, because after taxes, you don't have much money. But if you are entrepreneur and your idea takes off, you can earn a lot more money, and then you can help the work and the ummah and so on and so forth. Now, I also find the support from Islam why we should be entrepreneur. As you know, the Hadith of Prophet Sallallahu for a Muslim, today should be better than yesterday, and tomorrow should be better than
Mhm.
today. And that is entrepreneurship. You will just constantly work towards improving yourself. And then the other hadith says that everything we do, we should do it in the best manner. That it should be our best. And that is where I, say it not out of arrogance, but I say it that if someone can do my job, then I'm not doing my job. So what I mean there is that if someone else can do my job, then I have to work harder to do better. Because if I want to be recognized as someone, as a person, I have to differentiate myself from other person. And so it's a constant struggle to do better than the other. And if we continuously do that, we will outperform each other and we will have the best.
Okay, so it's interesting that you say that, because we need people who can compete on the level of Elon Musk and the likes in the Ummah, and perhaps come up with a model that Muslims can look at. It's very interesting. Now, you mentioned Reverend Defrost in Somerset, New Jersey, and
Right.
his pledge he has for his church members. It is quite unique. I
Yeah.
quite enjoyed it. And I thought,
Right.
but why is it that we don't have our ulama teach these skills to the people who come to the masajids? You know, our duty is not only to read the salah, our duty is not only to give the khutbah. Those are, important and yes, ritualistic. So, the pledge that he gives his members is quite important. So why do you bring in Reverend DeForest, and then you talk about you make many reference to the Bible as well on the issue of
Yeah.
finances and life. Take us through this as well, and why our ulama as well, who are the imams of masjids, should become financially savvy, or savvy with finances, and they can pass that knowledge on to the greater community who comes there. Dr. Mirza?
And many other things. Dealing with the youth,
Absolutely.
it requires a special language. If I continue to use the language I'm using, they will not be interested. One of the crises
Mhm.
here and elsewhere, even the churches have, youth are leaving the faith. They just feel that it's no longer relevant and people don't speak to them. But going back to your question, I looked at it. Living here, you deal with Christians, Jews, Muslims, and people of other faith. So in the book, while I'm not a scholar of either, I try to bring in some examples from Judaism, from some from Christianity, and then of course Islam. And one thing which may respond to your question was so striking to me, that you look at same topic in the Bible and Judaism, then the Old Testament, the New Testament, and then Quran. And when you reach to Quran, it is a finality. So you find that things are final and they're crystal clear. They are put in a sense that that's it. Concept of inheritance, same thing in Judaism. The son takes everything. Girls don't get anything if that person has a son. And Christianity. Then in our case, Quran specifically talks about who gets inheritance. There's no question or no argument how you can distribute it. The only thing is that we are permitted to give or wish or will up to one third, whomever we want to wish, but has to be non-inheritors. The other verse in the Quran tells us that when inheritance are distributed, give something to near relatives who are present at the time of distribution, who may not have a right to
Mhm.
inherit, but they are your relatives. Like in my case, my cousin or my children. If they are there, they will feel they are getting so much, I'm not getting anything. So you give them something. So those are the permissions which are given to us, but they are defined. It's one third. It is something in discussion of the person who is distributing it, and it is set in the Quran how to distribute with the husband or the wife, the son and the daughter. You don't have children, the parents and the brother, the sister, and so on and so forth. Uh, Similarly, if you look at zakah, same thing. Tithing concept or zakah concept is there in Judaism. Christianity has some, but people argue conservative Christian give 10%. Other people say 10% too much, so they go down to 1% and so on and so forth. But in Islam, it is defined. You give 2.5% above whatever is your need, and if it's investment in stocks, you pay 10% of the profit. If it is a passive investment in gold and like whatnot, you have to 2.5%. If you happen
Mhm.
to find gold
Yeah,
in your
I want to.
backyard, yeah,
Mhm.
you pay
I just want to
20%.
get to
Yeah,
the point, because we got roughly 5 minutes left. The fact that the priest in the church took time to teach his congregation about finances,
Right.
my question is, isn't this something that we should consider for our imams as well? Very briefly, please, and then I want to
Yeah,
go end up with the
absolutely.
last question.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because knowledge never hurts. And each one of us, we should have knowledge of everything: how to invest in stocks, how to save, how to plan for our retirements, how you plan for our death even. In our case, we have planned, we have already bought the grapes. We have made our children in charge of certain things. Certain thing. We
Yeah.
told our son is in Arabic and Islamic studies PhD. We told them you will take care of the funeral rites. Our oldest daughter,
Exactly.
she wants to work. We told her you will take care of the communication with the community, and so on and so forth. So coming back to absolutely, I would say that the pledge is very simple. It says to use God's strategy for managing money. It is there's nothing negative about it. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala tells us how to manage. Everything is balanced. Keep my expenses below my income, to pay my bills on time, and to invest in assets that grow in value, and contribute to my church, in our case, the mosque, and its ministry. So it's giving. It's very simple pledge, but it makes you realize that these are the guidelines which we have to use.
Inshallah, I'll ask Brother Abed at this point in time to present to you, Dr. Mirza, our Waqf certificate for you as a gift, eternal gift of the Akhirah, for the Akhirah. He'll present that gift now to you, inshallah. I'll email it to you, Brother Abed, if you can bring it up on the screen. And we've got about 4 minutes left. There you are, the certificate of appreciation. Again,
Thank
it
you.
ties in well with the topic. This is an appreciation of your humble contribution, support, and encouragement to the Global Association of Muslim Schools. May Allah may Allah bless you with His choicest blessing. This is a Waqf certificate of about it has a rand value to it, but it's given out in your name, so it collects money, so to speak, for your akhir. So there you are.
Oh,
It
mashallah.
speaks to what it is. That's a Waqf certificate. You can see the unique number on the top. And to the listeners out there, to the viewers out there, this is what GAIS actually does to every one of our guests that we have. I want to now round up with a last question, Doctor. We've got like 3 minutes. I
Yes.
had to keep this question for the last. We live under the impression that professionals like doctors, lawyers, and the likes are very savvy with finances, but you have a different perspective.
Yeah.
Please explain in the
My
light of the
perspective,
fact that many professionals also serve on boards of welfare institutions, but themselves are not financially savvy, and this leads to problems. I can give you 1 minute for that because I have
yeah.
to round up in a minute
Yeah,
after. Thank you.
it's possible that one engineer or a doctor could be good in finances, but they are not specialists. So we need to listen to the specialist and follow their advice, and not, think that I know everything. Let me say, Brother Abdullah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you and Brother Abid. My email address is available, and you can put in the chat. If anyone has any questions, you can send me an email. I'll be happy to answer.
Now, Alhamdulillah, we've come to the end of the program. I've got 2 minutes to round up. Firstly, I want to thank my guest, Dr. Yaqub Mirza, for coming onto the program. Jazakallah khair for making yourself available at odd times, given the South African time zone and the American time zone, for you to reply to my chats and my emails. Inshallah, may Allah make us meet personally. It will be a wonderful offering. Further to that, I want the listeners
I
to
mean,
understand that preservation of wealth is an Islamic duty. We have yet to learn how to do that effectively, particularly teachers in schools, because we always complain the money is not enough. But if you look at it, Allah has given you that amount and we have to make qadr of it. And I think this book is a must read for everyone. And I would conclude by saying it must actually become institutionalized in our Muslim schools or schools in the main, where it must be taught. It can be used in our business studies lessons, in our accounting lessons as a set work study. So a child would probably finish it over 2 years, but in that 2 years, that child, whether grade 9, grade 10, or grade 11, or grade 12, would actually begin saving. Because remember, children are making money as we speak, and they have money now to invest. They have money that will be in their inheritance, and they have money in their assets as well. So they will have to form a will. And that is what we want to say. And that's all for me, your host Abdullah Suji on GAIS Reading Circles. Jazakallah khair. It has been excellent being with you from my side, and my host Abid, Jazakallah for a wonderful setup for us here. And Dr. Mirza again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you.